Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Write Masterclass, W.R.I.T.E, 5 tools to help you write your memoir. I'm Jenn Baljko, founder of Always On My Way. And today I am here with my mindful writing mentor and developmental editor hat on, and also coming right off publication with 11 other amazing women for this Fierce Awakenings published book that we now have. It was an Amazon bestseller. And some of the things we're going to talk about today are direct experience from collaborating on this book, and some of the things that I've been carrying with me for the last few months, gelling some ideas together to help all of you write your memoir and nonfiction books or whatever kinds of stories you're working on. And what I realized is that what I'm going to talk about today are things that I've actually been doing for probably almost 3 decades and never really put words around. So, and some of this I will give right off the top a little kudos and a little hat tip to Red Thread Publishing and Sierra Meckler and Adrienne McKeon, who actually helped me realize some of these things in the writing circles that I was in with them, producing the Fierce Awakenings book. And it just helped me clarify a little bit about the writing process and some basic points that I hope will help all of you bring into your writing practice as you step into owning new chapters of your story, wherever you are in the writing process and whatever story you are working on and telling. So let me just start with this. I'm going to say hello to everybody who's here in the room. Hello, and hello to all of you watching the recording. I know I got a bunch of emails saying that you couldn't make the live one, so you're here in spirit, and I am looking forward to hearing back from you about what we're going to talk about today. So let me get that up and ready. I'm hopeful that you can see this. Hold on, I need to kind of backtrack a little bit. And I lost, of course, my window. Okay, so I think you can see this now, and let me just fix this a little bit so I can see everything. Right. Here we go. W.R.I.T.E. What does this stand for? What's all these little dots here mean? It's because the technique that I'm going to show you today really counteracts a little bit of what we've been taught writing is. We've been taught that writing is sitting down at the desk 10, 12, 13, 14 hours a day and just writing until we're done, and going through this very laborious sort of process. And I've certainly done that myself. I was a journalist for almost 30 years and writing on deadline, and it was always just churn out more copy. I worked for newspapers and magazines for a long time, and then was a freelance writer for a long time. So it was always just quick turn stories, hurry up, get them done, move on to the next thing. That works. And a lot of writers do that. And many successful writers do this. Isabel Allende is one of them. She does a hybrid of what we're going to be talking about. But I remember sitting in a room with her where she explained that she starts all of her books on, I think it's January 8th, which was a significant date in her family's history. And she starts writing every book and every novel that she's ever written on that date. And she writes until she's done. She kind of holds herself in the office, writes, channels whatever story is coming out, and then sometime around mid-year, she sends it off to her editor and to her translator and to her publisher, and then she comes out with a new book. she does something else that I also loved hearing about, and I'll tell you about it because it leads into this idea that there's a kinder and more human way of writing, where we need to build in time for periods of rest and periods of play and periods of daydreaming and periods to do the research and the things that are non-writing tasks, but are super valuable to the writing process that we often don't talk about. And I think if we can reshape the idea of how we need to write, we'd be all much more successful in writing our stories. Probably faster, even if we actually slowed down the writing process to incorporate some of these different aspects. So as you're kind of settling in, you're definitely going to need a piece of paper and a pen or notebook if you have that handy. This is being recorded, both video, audio, and you'll get the audio transcriptions. So I'm going to dare you to do some note-taking, if you want to do note-taking in a different kind of way, because you will have these 3 different ways of reviewing the files and the notes later on. And this is going to tie right into one of the first things we're going to talk about creating a kinder and more human approach to writing. I am going to challenge you and dare you to take notes visually as a doodle. I want you to sketch the keywords that catch your interest instead of writing down a whole pile of notes that you may or may not refer back to. And I'm going to encourage you and invite you to do that because I've noticed over my life that I've actually paid a lot more attention to things that were being spoken and things that I saw on a screen or presented in a presentation visually. I remembered it better when my hand was doodling and I was really intentionally listening. And there's something kinetic. I'm a visual learner, so I visually learn better. That's why there's some slides here for the visual learners in the room. You'll hear my voice, but I also have a kinetic way of learning. And when my hand moves in the same way, I remember things better. So as you're coming into the room, and welcome to everybody who's coming in right now. You didn't miss anything. We are just getting started and you need a pen and paper to kind of follow along, but it's not really for note-taking. It's for doodling and daydreaming as you're intentionally listening, because the very first thing that we're going to talk about with this kinder approach to yourself in the writing process, the W is wonder. This is the first tool that I've noticed for a long time was in my toolkit and that I didn't actually put words around until this year when I sat in writing circles with Red Thread co-writers and writers and Sierra and Adrienne, where they talk about it more as a moon cycle, where you have periods of rest and periods of activity, with the coming into the new moon as the period of sort of daydreaming and closing out one cycle and resting a little bit and then initiating the plan for the next active cycle. But for me, that word, that activity actually really distilled down to the word wonder. And wonder, just the definition alone is, for the noun, it's a noun and a verb, is wonderful. The quality of exciting, amazed admiration. How are you walking through your life with wonder? Wonder, it's like, every time I hear this word, it's as strong a word as joy, as imagination, as awe. These are all like my power words, serendipity. Wonder's filled with beginnings and possibilities and opportunities and problem solving and invention and reimagining something. That's what the seed of wonder holds for me. And I think it's incredibly important every time we start writing to start with a little dash of wonder. Wonder, I would argue, is the beginning of all great stories. Somebody sat back and said, I wonder what I could say in this book. I wonder what story would come out of me if I just sat down to write. I wonder what would happen if I actually looked back on my life and saw how far I've come and what I've learned along the way. And I wonder where it will take me next. My premise statement for some of this is, I think that wonder makes life more memorable. And it's the seed of beginning a memoir and beginning your story, beginning whatever story you want to take shape. Stepping into the wonder of it all helps. It helps ground the story, but it also helps create this sort of up in the clouds approach, because sometimes if you're too rigid with your storytelling and you don't let enough imagination and joy and wonder come in, you might be blindsided. You may not see these other things that are just out of view. So for each of these tools, we're going to have a practice at the end, and you'll need a pen and paper to take it. It'll be like a little bit of red light, green light that we're going to play, because you could sit in the phase of wonder for a while and actually schedule time to be in this daydreaming kind of mode. That's how I'm thinking of wonder, is when you just sit back in your chair and you kind of look up and you go, I wonder what I'm going to write today. And just even starting with that question can be a really powerful place to begin when you get stuck. And there'll be some tips at the end of how you could bring this into your practice. But as much as we have wonder, the R in write, I've dedicated to research. If you're writing a memoir or a nonfiction book, and even if you're writing a fiction book, you do need time to research. And I know some of you in the room know this to be absolutely true. And it's a rabbit hole. And once you start the research, it can really pull you even sort of away from your story and your writing. But it's essential. It is probably one of the most valuable non-writing tools or skills that you'll need, because inevitably you're going to have to fact check something. You're going to need a date for something. You're going to want to find some old journal that you wrote, and that's in a box somewhere in your attic or in your basement. You're going to need a photo that jogs a memory of a scene that you want to share. And it's important that you take time when you're sitting down and creating sustainable writing practice to do the research. And both of these, wonder and research, are tools that I used as a journalist. I mean, obviously the research was part of all of my journalism work. You have to call people, you have to get facts, you got to get information, you're gathering up data. But once you even have all the data, you have to wonder about how you're going to structure it. So I put structure here as a research thing, because at some point, you're going to need to structure your story. Whether you're a person who likes to write by the seat of your pants, you might be a pantser, that's called, or a person who likes to plot out every detail in every paragraph and every page and every chapter title, that would be a plotter. Somewhere in the middle, you're going to be both. There's going to be a need for you to research something and structure and organize your notes into something that feels like a cohesive story that usually has 3 acts. It's like a 3-act play. That's how it's a really good formula for writing your memoir and any other story. You're going to have to figure out where your turning points are, how your protagonist, which could very well be a younger version of you, moves through the storytelling. You're going to want to think about the scenes that you want to create. You'll even want to, at some point, research and have a dictionary on hand so that you could choose the best verb that might really encapsulate more what you're trying to say. So planning time for research is really important. And research is not writing. Research is research. And it's really easy when you're writing to say, okay, I only need 10 minutes to Google this thing. And then 3 hours later, you've gotten nothing done on your writing. And you have a stack of links that you want to go back and look at. So as a tool for your writing process, it's really important to put some time aside dedicated only for research so that you have a boundary and you are looking for specific information that you need to tell a better story. And these go back and forth. Like some of this might be wondering, like, oh, that thing that my mom gave me, 15 years ago, every time I find it or see it, it brings me right back into this moment. And that might be important for you to have. So there's a little bit, they're not opposites. Wonder and research are not opposites, but they are very complementary to each other. Because if you're wondering about something and you might need some research, building those times together, sometimes even side by side on your calendar, could be really helpful. Because what comes next, and I love that it's 5 tools, because the thing that comes next with the I for write, initiate writing. And I like that it's nested a little bit within the wonder and the research, that it's not the primary task that you're doing. Again, going back to the traditional model of where we think we are sitting in front of a computer or with a notebook and just writing and writing and writing until the whole story just falls out of you. Yes, that might happen. But if you have the wonder and the research in hand, it's more likely that when you initiate the writing process, that you'll be able to carry that energy of writing a more complete story by having the writing nested between the wonder and the research and what comes next. Feels like a good way to hold a writing practice. So initiating writing, you could even call this a writing interval. This is the time that you actually spend writing, making this a mindful, creative interval where maybe you do a little bit of movement before you do this. Maybe you write down your premise. I'm working on this, and I'm going to say premise a lot. Having a premise statement for your book is incredibly important. It's what holds the whole book together and helps you organize and structure your story. But even as you sit down to write one chapter, you can say, today I have 1 hour to write however far I get, and all I'm going to do is writing. And you make it special time. If you have 5 minutes to write, you write for 5 minutes. If you have 4 hours to write, you write for 4 hours. The book doesn't write itself. And without time to actually do the writing, you'll just have a bunch of notes and uncompleted manuscripts sitting in your drawer. And you have to write them. So making this like a special creative time. Many of you have heard me say that I believe that creativity really is the vehicle through which our higher selves or our spirit kind of sends messages. And then when we use our hands, we kind of translate that message. And I think writing can very much be that way. If you've not written a long form book before, if you are just getting started, you hear this thing about writer's block all the time, but I've been a journalist and you have to write on demand. There's no such thing as writer's block. You write when the editor tells you he needs a story or she needs a story and you send it in. So making this sort of a special time where you build up a little bit of creativity muscle and create muscle memory to the writing process is really, I think it's really important, because once I know I'm writing uninterrupted as best as I can, the world is happening around us all the time and there's always interruptions. But if you could put yourself then in the writing box of I'm going to write, you might be surprised by how much you actually do write. So that's the I for write. That's the third tool. So we have wonder, research, and initiate writing, or reverse, if you reverse those letters, it could be a writing interval. And if you think of it as an increment or an interval of time that you're going to spend writing, it might help you come to the blank page a little bit easier. Because this is what happens next. And this tailoring your story becomes a little bit more important when you actually choose that you're writing a book. If you're writing just because you want to write and you want to get these words down on paper, that's fantastic. And that's usually the first draft. But writing a book is not writing your morning pages. Julia Cameron has this practice, a creativity practice, where you do morning pages. And I've done them on and off over the years, not with 100% regularity. And I haven't done journaling with 100% regularity. It comes in seasons for me. And some seasons I'm more attuned to it, and some seasons I'm not. But the morning pages is where you sort of dump everything out on paper. That's not going to be your book. And that's not going to take you far enough. Once you choose that you want to be an author and you want to write a book, the morning pages is where you will kind of warm yourself up, and you might be able to glean a few ideas from it. But as you choose to become an author and choose to step into writing your memoir or your nonfiction story or even fiction, you will start to understand that you're not writing really for you. The first draft, and it's always called the shitty first draft, is, and I think it was Anne Lamott who kind of phrased, coined that phrase a long time ago, the shitty first draft. It's what kind of vomits out of you. It comes out in any way, shape, and form that it comes out. Pieces are over here, pieces are over there. And sometimes they're linear, sometimes they're not, sometimes they're chronological, sometimes they're not. That's the shitty first draft. And that's for you. That's where you, as a writer, get to kind of say everything you want to say. But the T in write, and the fourth tool in the toolkit that I'm sharing with you today, is tailoring. You do have to tailor your story with the idea that if you do go down the road of publishing, the book is for your reader. You publish for the reader, and the reader will embrace your story. And that's what happens once a reader, and this happens for you too. I'm sure you have books in your life that have had an impact where you have felt so connected to the story that you thought it was your own life even. You really want the readers to be really connected to your story and feel like it's their story. So when you sit down and tailor your writing process, and it might be as simple as wondering, okay, who am I writing for? What is my writing goal? Is my writing goal to publish? Is my writing goal to help me become an expert in a certain field and build credibility? Is writing a book really just a creative endeavor? Is it about you owning your experience and sharing it with others? I think as you clarify what your writing goal is, you begin to then tailor the stories and the scenes and the characters and the universal truth that you're trying to share and the lessons you're trying to impart in your story. And the other question and the direct corollary to that is, who is your ideal reader? And this goes back to wonder. One day, as you're sitting down before you're writing your book, have one person in mind that you're going to write this story for. You may have this very ambitious idea that you want to sell millions of copies, translated into hundreds of languages and sold throughout the world. And that's okay. You can hold that vision, really the big vision of that, but you need to write to one person. So when I write about my Bangkok to Barcelona walk across 2 continents in 3.5 years, I always write the blog, the Instagram post, and the book that I'm also going to be writing. Pieces of it are written, but they're going to be all rewritten in 2024. The one person who I'm writing it for is my friend Bonnie. Bonnie has followed every aspect of that walk from day one. She liked every single Instagram post. She liked our Facebook. She's put comments on our blogs. She knows our walk. So when I go back and I start writing about that for real as part of my memoir, she's the person I write to. What does Bonnie want to know about what I'm going to write today? And that's how I begin to tailor my story. Because right behind Bonnie, if Bonnie knows my story, or Bonnie would love to hear my story. And next to Bonnie and right around Bonnie, there are other people who've never heard of it before. So I have to be conscious of who I'm writing for and what information I need to give them at different points in the story. So the tailoring, as you sit down to write, will become a more natural sort of thing. Because even as you're in your first draft and you're writing your first shitty draft, which is, really your job is to write a shitty first draft, because it will evolve and it will become something else after that. But as you're beginning to structure your story and organize your notes and organize your research and begin to think of what the ending of the book is, for me, it's very hard for me to start the first chapter unless I have already anticipated the ending of the story. And I love personal essay. I write a lot of personal essay. That's my favorite format. And my book will be a series of personal essays because I just love that format. So I'm always thinking about the end of the story as I write the beginning. And that's the way I sort of tailor it too, because then I reverse engineer it backwards. So there are lots of ways to come into this idea of tailoring your story. But what are your writing goals? Who's your ideal reader? And really, what are you trying to say in every chapter that you write? What's the point? What's your chapter about? What's the story about? And because you're not writing a biography. Biographies, are big historical figures, super rich people write biographies or have other people write biographies for them. If you're doing a memoir, you're taking a slice of your life, a certain amount of lived experience over a certain amount of time, or a certain themes, a theme and maybe some sub-themes, but you're really taking all of your view and bringing it down to a narrower window where you are imparting different lessons and different, essentially universal truths, where what you have lived becomes true for many other people, just by the simple fact that you've lived it, and we've all lived through those different kinds of heartbreaks and sadnesses and joys and sorrows and all those sort of universal emotions that we all know and have experienced. So that's there. And that leads to the evolve, also known as editing. Let's just say it right up front, you will have to revise, rewrite, and edit your story. And especially if you go through a publishing process, there will be more than one edit, almost definitely. It is a very rare event that you just sit down and channel everything exactly the way it's going to be for commercial purposes. Essentially, if you're publishing a book, you're publishing for commercial purposes. So just accept that there's going to be rewrites, and it's not about perfection. It's about telling the best story that you can. So when you go back in and you edit, you're going to find different ways of saying things. You're going to find a better verb, or you're going to see, and I've had this, whole pages will disappear because they're just not that important. They were important to write the first time. They're not going to make it into the final draft. There's a phrase for that. It's called kill the darlings, where the things that you're holding on so tightly to are just not going to be important to the reader. And you'll have to learn that it's not a criticism necessarily, that you're just coming with the intention of sharing the best story that you can in a way that is not confusing to the readers. And your story is going to, evolve. It's going to constantly evolve from the moment that you sit down to write your first chapter, or whatever chapter you're starting at. It may be a middle chapter, to wherever that beginning and ending link together. It's going to evolve. and it's going to evolve many times over, even in the writing process. But the hard lesson to learn here is to try to avoid editing as you go. I'm not very good at this. I do edit as I go. But when you're writing, you're writing. And when you're editing, you're editing. You can do it during the writing process as things become clearer. But my challenge is for you is to know and to put little notes in the margin where you know you need to come back and tweak, but to leave the editing process to when you have a really big chunk of story to edit. This is a little counterintuitive because I am a mindful writing mentor and I am helping people write chapters as they go along the book, the entire book process, and I do provide feedback in edits. It's a little counterintuitive. My suggestion, though, is to put a lot of those edits aside and keep writing until you have a really big chunk of work that you can look at and see how all the dots start connecting and what threads you're actually weaving together. So that's where we are in this. So we're going to do a 5-minute. Okay, why this matters? Well, okay, because you are choosing to own your story and write it and share it, and that deserves a certain amount of compassion and congratulatory discernment as well, right? You're going to sit down and write a book. That's going to take effort and energy and time and probably money and who knows, you know, and that it's important that you nest in the writing process with the wonder and the research and the tailoring and the edit, and know that that's all part of the package. That's all part of it. And that you don't need to be anywhere at any given time. You can do this in small increments and you could take days to do it. It's all okay. And that's, you know, that's part of understanding that this writing process is half art and half science, but it's really a human experience to write a book. It's like running a marathon. You know, you got to prepare for it and you got to train for it and you got to get comfortable with it and you got to be willing to be surprised and be excited and amazed and hold yourself in admiration as you write your story. So how do you bring these tools into your toolkit every day? You schedule time for it, and then you stay in the step that you're in. If you are in a daydreaming moment, you stay on daydreaming, and that is your writing practice for the day. If you are in the research and you say, I'm going to dedicate 1 hour to research, if the research is complete in 35 minutes, okay, then maybe you can start writing, but stay in the step you're in. And definitely, if you're in the writing step, don't step out of the writing step and go do the research, because you very likely will lose the writing enthusiasm and may not come back to it right away. So stay in the schedule block that you have allowed yourself to be in, or the dedicated, you know, block that you have said that you want to be there for, and stay there. Another great thing is it's kind of that idea that when you're in the shower, you get the best ideas because your thoughts, the volume of your thoughts have lowered a bit, and you can actually hear or feel or sense, or however you receive sort of wisdom or intuition comes in a little bit clearer. So going for a walk does the same thing. As you are walking and your stress hormones and your stress levels are coming down and your serotonin is going up, as your adrenaline kind of comes down and you're feeling a more balanced way, you're walking through the world and looking at different things and feeling the joy of walking, you probably will get some clarity in something that you want to write. You will have some lightning bolt will hit you about something that your protagonist needs to do. Or that one memory that was like kind of right behind the veil of your eyes and in your mind, but you couldn't quite remember it, will reveal itself again. In these cases, it's really good to go for a walk and talk with yourself. So carry your phone, stop and do some voice notes. Otter is a great tool for this because then you have the transcription available. Carry a notebook and a pencil so you can just jot down some key ideas. And there's that. And there's lots of ways that you can incorporate this, but there's also this like 5-minute thing that we're going to do right now. And, oh, that's a double slide. Funny that. Okay, so we're going to do a 5-minute writing practice. I'm going to put on the timer. And we're going to do it in 1-minute increments. And I hope you've been doodling, because if you've been doodling, you've already been sort of in a state of daydreaming and wondering, rather than taking notes and trying to listen really, really intensely. So, wonder. I'm going to hit the go. We're going to do a little bit of like, it's going to feel like red light, green light. And red light, green light is that children's game where when it's green light, you kind of run forward, and then somebody shouts red light and you kind of freeze. We're going to do that. And this is going to help build a little bit of this writing interval time so that you can build a successful and sustainable writing practice, which is ultimately why I hope you're here. So for 1 minute, I want you to daydream with the phrase, I wonder. I wonder what my book's going to be about. I wonder what story I really want to tell. I wonder what my protagonist is going to say. I wonder which character is going to be there. I wonder which scene is going to be a turning point scene. Whatever way you want to phrase this statement and whatever you want to wonder about, I'm going to say green light right now. Green light. You have 1 minute. No pens, no paper, nothing. Just if you want to put your hands on paper, draw, doodle. Let your hand run across a page and just doodle, but no words coming through on paper. Just allow yourself to drift off with the wonder of it all. "30 seconds. Close your eyes. Imagine the scene that you want to write and wonder what that scene feels like. And just let it soak into your body for a moment. Not holding on too tight, just letting it all kind of unfold like a movie. 5 seconds. Red light. Stop. You could do these for longer extended times, but for the purpose of this workshop, we're just going to do them in 1 minute increments because I want you to feel how quick you could fall into wonder if you allow yourself and give yourself the space to do this. I'm going to say green light again, and I want you to pick up your pen, pencil, notebook. I want you to make a rapid fire list of the things you need to know about your story. Dates, locations, that photo that you know is in the garage somewhere, that little knick-knack that you know will bring back a whole flood of memories. What is the thing that you need to research to help your story? I'm going to give you 1 minute. Green light. What background info do you need to Google? What historical information do you need to find? Where's that journal that you're looking for? Just make a quick, rapid fire, first thought, best thought kind of list of the kind of research you need to tell your story. Or at least one little piece of your story. 30 seconds. "15. Three, two, one, red light. You could do this before you start writing or after. Try not to interrupt your writing to make research notes, but just put little notes in the margin if you need research while you're writing. But don't stop the writing. Now we're going to initiate writing. Really, 1 minute. This is sort of like a throat clearing warm-up exercise for the real writing workshop, for the real writing workout that you're going to engage in. Just very quick, 2-3 sentences, a couple keywords. What is the key point of your chapter? What is the premise statement of your book? What is your book going to be about? What's the back cover of the book? The summary. 1, 2, 3 sentences, whatever you can write in a minute. Ready? Green light. Free writing here. Non-stop writing, just write it all down. Just going to stay quiet for the rest of the time. I'll give you a 10-second warning when we're close. But just run wild and free. Words on paper. Don't get stuck. 12 seconds. Red light. Put your pen down. For the next 2 minutes, I want you to spend a minute or a bit of time, maybe you only need 30 seconds, but I want you to take a quick scan of what you wrote. And I want you to ask yourself the question, what is my writing goal? Who am I writing for? And then when you have that, when you have that little bit, even just if it's a little morsel, then allow yourself to evolve that story a little bit, right? Then pick up your pen and write, I am writing for, and my story is about this, and my writing goal is this. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes for this, but it's kind of a combined 2-minute step here, where we're going to tailor and evolve and edit at the same sort of time. And when you get to that point, in the 30 seconds that are left from that, I would like to encourage you to write down an idea that you can come back to. Something that is like going to be where you leave off today's writing, but is already planting the wonder seed or the research seed for the next time you come back. All right, 2 minutes. Go ahead. Green light. Reminding yourself what your writing goal is. Why do you want to write a book? Who are you writing the book for? And then when you're ready for the next minute, make a note where you can come back and tweak something. Make a note where you want to add something else. Write down who is your reader. Who's the one person that you really want to read your story? What does she or he look like? What does she do? How does she move in the world? Take another 30 seconds on that. First thought, best thought. Try not to overthink this. If you get stuck, come back to the wonder of it all. And then allow yourself to jot down ideas. Who are you writing for? And why are you writing? And what is your book about? 20 seconds. 10. And red light. Congratulations. You now have 5 new tools in your writing kit, your toolkit, your creativity belt, and your canvas, however you want to appreciate that. So just little applause over here. Congratulations. Congratulations on that. This is how quick you can drop into this. And you can spend a week in wonder, you could spend a week in research, you can spend a week writing. But if you put all these steps together, it does smooth out the writing process. And it's much better and much more healthy than sitting at a desk and writing for 12 hours and forgetting to eat and sleep as you write your book. This is where I'm going to end. I am going to take 2 minutes and mention that I am relaunching the one-on-one mentoring program. I've been working with mentees to help develop their memoir and nonfiction writing. That is going to come back in. It was on pause. I ran it through the spring, and then I was really busy with the book and then setting up the creativity jam, which I'll mention also here, the creativity jam that happened in October. So the mentoring, one-on-one mentoring was paused for a little while. That is picking up again. I am doing the onboarding. I have about 5 spots. Well, actually, probably about 3 spots. I have 2. I know for sure 2 are coming back. So there's probably 3 spots open, maybe 4. But if you'd like to have some one-on-one time where you will have 2 calls a month, we'll sit down and you'll submit a story for 3,000 words. I'll read it. You'll be invited to have Voxer calls, 2-hour Voxer group drop-in office hours. This is one of the more comprehensive mentoring programs I put together. And you can find out more about that, and all the information is pretty much updated over on alwaysonmyway.com/writer. But I know many of you might have some questions about this, and I'll include this in the email where I send out the recordings as well. But for those of you in the room, if you want to schedule a 30-minute discovery call and see how we can work together on a mentoring basis, I'm going to schedule this call on the, I just put the calendar in the notes there. And on the writing page, always on my way /writer, there is an application process where I do ask you to think about these things. Who's your ideal reader? What are your writing goals? How quickly do you want to reach your writing goals? And the mentoring program now is going into, I used to run it as a 3-month seasonal term, 3 times a year. It is moving into a year-round recurring program that requires a 3-month initial commitment, and then you go monthly after that. And it goes to as long as you need the support or want the support. So you can read about that on the website. I'll just put that website also in the notes as well. I'm sure you all have it there. You see it on the screen, but so you have it handy when we go off. Small group writing circles. If you are interested in a smaller, in a more collective group setting, I am considering starting 1 or 2 different kinds of writing circles come January. I'll only create it if I have enough interest in doing so. Rather than create it and hope people come, I want to tailor it to the people who show up and want that. So if you're interested in creating some sort of writing circle that gives you the consistency in a small group setting, it would probably be capped at between 10 and 20 people. I kind of like the idea of 15 people, where we would probably meet twice a month, and it would be maybe, the idea that I'm thinking of is there would be 1 session where it would be just a writing circle where you come and you write. And then the second session would be where you can read back pieces of your story and get feedback on pieces of your story from the group. Sort of like a master class, mastermind group, edit group feedback. That's sort of the structure I'm playing with. If that's something you're interested in, please email me at Jenn, Jenn, 2 N's, at alwaysonmyway.com, and we'll start a little bit of a list there. Couple other things coming up that's not on this slide, and I'll stop sharing for now, is tomorrow. If you haven't gone to the Creativity Jam, there are some really fabulous sessions, and there are some writing specific sessions also in there. There's going to be a flash sale that starts tomorrow for 48 hours. It's really designed for more than 50 recordings from 30 speakers. And the flash sale is going to be for $55 to access all of those recordings until the March equinox, in March 20th, 2024. I feel like it's a really fantastic fall and winter sort of creative way to nestle in and move more inward, and use like Scorpio season and Sagittarius season to like investigate your life, and then to come back out and really start the new year with, you know, direction and focus, and mapping sort of your book progress and process. So that's going to be $55. The regular price for that is going to be $99. And tied to that, and also separate, on September, oh my God, what month am I in? On November 11th, using the 11/11 energy, a few co-authors and I from Fierce Awakenings are offering a master class. It's going to be $47, and the registration's not open yet. I'm still creating the landing page for that, but it's going to be 11/11. It's going to be from 4 to 7 p.m. Europe time. So it's should be 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. on the East Coast. And we're going to really go deep dive into all the different stories and chapters here. There's really a beautiful journey through this book, and there are worksheets. And we're going to co-teach and co-guide you through the book so that you can make these stories your own. So that's not on the slides, but it'll be included in a couple emails that you'll get in the coming weeks. So I'm going to open this up for any questions. We have a couple minutes left. We are still recording. You could stay on or off camera, but I am going to put us into gallery view. So maybe your questions would be relevant to anybody else watching the replay. And for those of you watching the replay, email me, Jenn, 2 N's, JENN, at alwaysonmyway.com if you have any questions. Welcome, Susan. Wow, I feel like I'm right on time and then also rushing. So with that, if there are no questions and nothing in the chat, then I'm going to send you off, and with the wish of happy writing, and make it a joy journey. Writing doesn't have to be a slog or a chore. It can actually be joyful work, even in the most confusing and uncertain moments of the writing process. At the end, you'll look back and say, wow, I wrote that. And there's a real feeling of accomplishment that comes with that. So keep going, keep writing. I'm here if you need any help and support. And that's it. I'll see you next time. There are going to be more master classes like this coming up. And I'm going to get into a more regular cycle, probably seasonally, at least once quarterly. I think that's feeling like the direction I'm taking for 2024. So there might be one more before the end of the year. I haven't decided yet, but there will be some coming up early in 2024 as well. So I'll keep you posted. All right, talk to you soon.